research and how you got into PMS specifically?
Yeah. Well, I got in. That was actually what I did my master's thesis on. I was sitting in a medical library just looking through journals, which is what we did before there was PsycInfo. You just pulled them off and you looked through them and you found many interesting things you weren't looking for. And so I found some articles about premenstrual syndrome, premenstrual tension. I'd never heard of it before. And so I decided to try to study it. So I had some surveys, and I gave them out to women of various ages. And basically, my thesis didn't work out so well because nobody knew what I was talking about. Because everyone knew about cramps, but nobody knew about PMS. So it just wasn't something that people complained about. It was just unknown. It was the kind of thing, my mother used to say sometimes, I got up on the wrong side of the bed today. And maybe she had a little water retention premenstrually and she was irritable. Maybe that's what she meant. Or she could have meant she had too many martinis the night before. I don't know. It could have been anything. But it was just part of the ups and downs of life. It wasn't a big deal. And then in 1980, there were 2 trials in Great Britain where women used the defense that they had premenstrual syndrome at the time of their crimes. And this was an international sensation. In fact, one of my early studies was called The Media Construct a Menstrual Monster. And I went back and read in magazines and newspapers coverage of those trials and articles about PMS, which exploded from, like maybe 2 a year to 32 a year after that, because everyone was talking about it. And then, of course, everyone thought she had it. So, sometimes I tell my students about this. They're just astonished. They can't believe that there was a time when nobody thought they had PMS, and now everyone thinks that she does. So the problem is, I'm not trying to say that there are no changes in your body that you can experience and notice across the menstrual cycle. Every woman knows that there are. The question is, how bothersome do they have to be before you say, I have a medical problem? If it's normal, it's not a medical problem. It's just premenstrual changes or biorhythms or whatever you'd like to call it. It's not premenstrual syndrome. So I have done a lot of writing about women's views of PMS. I've done some theoretical writing about PMS as a culture-bound syndrome. I'm collecting some data right now, actually, where we have probably 150 people at the moment. We're getting them by posting on Craigslist and asking women to fill out the questionnaire. And we're looking at self-silencing and perfectionism as predictors of PMS. So it's a very, very interesting area to study. There's quite a lot to do, but it's really amazing, to think that in the 1970s nobody knew what it was, and now everybody thinks she has it.
Right, a world before PMS.
Unbelievable, but
It's the importance of knowing the history.
Yes, exactly. As you know, right.
Well, talk to me a bit about the menstrual joy work that you've done.
Oh, yes, of course. Well, that was a fun study. Some of the work that I do has to do with attitudes toward menstruation and menopause, and so I think you would fit that study into the attitudes arena. What we did was we gave people the menstrual attitudes questionnaire, which is a standard measure. And before they filled out that questionnaire, they got, depending upon which group they were in, either the menstrual distress questionnaire, which is the major questionnaire people use to collect symptom experience. And of course, in the title it says menstrual distress, so generally menstrual cycle researchers, white it out. We don't give them the title when they see it, but this time we left it on there. Or a joke questionnaire that was invented by the authors of The Curse, Lupton and Toth, and the third one's name is escaping me at the moment. But they made up a questionnaire just to make fun of the MDQ. They called it Menstrual Joy Questionnaire. And I think there are about 10 or 11 symptoms, right? And they're things like elation, concentration, enhanced sexual drive, vitality, creativity, a bunch of things like that. And so the students, depending upon which one they saw first, they answered the attitude questionnaire differently. If they saw the distress questionnaire first, their attitudes were more negative, and if they saw the joy questionnaire first, more positive. Please, I'll just flip this. Okay. So, this was an important study because it showed very clearly that social learning influences the way you think about things.